all of the chronic diseases that we treat are on the rise. And are we really preventing anything? Are we really stopping anything or just prolonging illnesses and prolonging life with chronic conditions?
This is the Pursuit of Wellness podcast, and I'm your host, Mari Llewellyn. Hi guys, welcome back to the Pursuit of Wellness. Today I am sitting down with Dr. Marty. He's a healthcare advocate, surgeon, and New York Times best-selling author. He dissects the complex web of our current healthcare system and its impact on everyday health. This was such a mind-blowing episode, tons of information and things we can do to change the healthcare system. He pulls back the curtain on major blind spots in healthcare, from women's health to food safety issues like food dyes and seed oils in baby formula. We dive into the powerful effects of chronic illness and lifestyle choices, discussing the influence of school lunch programs, hormone disruptors, and the hidden dangers of ultra-processed foods. Dr. Marty also shares how cultural obedience within the healthcare system can delay the necessary change and offers practical steps for optimizing family healthcare, especially for children. This is such an eye-opening episode on preventative care, the root causes of chronic issues, and the importance of community and purpose in maintaining overall well-being. Another fantastic episode all about our healthcare system, a mind-blowing one, but a really important one. Without further ado, let's hop into this convo with Dr. Marty. Dr. Marty, welcome to the show.
Good to be with you, Mari. Thanks for having me.
So excited to chat. You recently launched your book, Blindspot, which was on the bestseller list for all 5 weeks, correct?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I feel like a lot of the topics you're covering in this book are a big conversation right now, as they should be. What inspired you to write Blindspots?
Well, I'm deep in the medical ivory tower of academics and, the world of research and guidelines and making national recommendations and critiquing studies. And if we stop for a minute and just put our head up and look around us in medicine, all of the chronic diseases that we treat are on the rise. And are we really preventing anything? Are we really stopping anything or just prolonging illnesses and prolonging life with chronic conditions? So we have this huge blind spot. We talk about demonizing saturated fat, low fat. We moved the whole world to a low fat diet. And we ignored ultra processed foods and chemicals engineered to be in the foods to make them addictive. And some of these are very dangerous. Seed oils, micronutrients, microplastics, pesticides. We've ignored all of it. I didn't get a wink of it in medical school. And it turns out all of these things are central to health. Yeah. And so I really wanted to talk about the latest medical and scientific research on the issues that live in our blind spots.
What would you say are the major blind spots in healthcare today?
I would say, first of all, a lack of humility. It's creating a tremendous amount of distrust. When we get something wrong in medicine, you need to apologize. You need to correct the record. You need to say, gosh, we gave the wrong guidance on the food pyramid for 70 years. We feel terrible. Half of our nation's children are sick or pre-diabetic or diabetic or obese. That is a catastrophic report card. We feel terrible. We want to correct the record. There was industry corruption, and it still continues with nutrition guidelines. We ignored the role of ultra-processed foods and other chemicals. We are now going to change the way we do research. We're going to correct the record. We're going to talk about not just fat, but sugar. And you really don't see that. And it's creating a tremendous amount of distrust. The numbers are not good on our profession right now. Trust is down from 71% to 40%, trust in doctors and hospitals.
Yeah.
New study just came out. We have the highest rates of burnout and suicide in our profession of medicine. Doctors hate being on these hamster wheels where they just have to bill and code and see patients quickly. We haven't given doctors the time to get into the root causes, talk about lifestyle, what's in the fridge, how are you eating? So we need a new focus. We need to talk about these big issues we haven't talked about with some humility and recognize that we have been trained in a way that makes us entirely unprepared to take care of addressing root causes of diseases.
Mm.
And the worst thing in medicine is not just being unprepared to talk about the root causes of illnesses, it's being unprepared and perceiving that you're the expert and totally prepared.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you, we dismiss things so quickly in medicine that now there's a big body of research that are answering these questions that we have to listen to.
Yeah. I think a lot of people listening, and myself included, have had experiences of walking into a doctor's office, having questions that go unanswered or seem to not be a concern to the doctor, or wanting tests, or even just wanting my results back and having an understanding of what's going on and kind of being told no.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty intimidating relationship, because when you're talking to someone in a white coat who's kind of an authority, you almost don't want to push back too hard. And you want to just do whatever they're telling you to do. Do you feel like there's a blind spot in women's health?
Absolutely. If you look at, first of all, historically, it's been a male-dominated, paternalistic culture in medicine that fought home pregnancy testing because doctors believed women can't handle this information on their own at home. They blocked HIV testing without a doctor giving you the results. You had to make an appointment to get the results. You couldn't just get the results on your own or home testing. They blocked home COVID testing for the first year of COVID. So there's a strong paternalistic culture. So I think we can benefit a lot from recognizing that our medical education is flawed.
Mm-hmm.
Our research models have been myopic. So unless there's a randomized, controlled 5 or 10-year study of something, we generally have disbelief that there's anything there.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you compare? How do you address the fact that Europe has much lower rates of chronic diseases, depression, lower rates of infertility? We're seeing an epidemic of these diseases. You'll have patients come into the hospital, and I've seen this, with chronic abdominal pain. We order a kitchen sink of tests. Nothing works. We do procedures, biopsies. We give them these sort of nebulous gray zone diagnoses. Nothing works. They go to Europe, live in Italy for the summer, and come back and say, I've never felt better.
Yeah.
There's no randomized control trial that is going to tell you what's going on there, but we can use common sense. We can use deductive reasoning and scientific logic to say they don't have a highly poisoned food supply. They are eating healthy foods from healthy soil. They are not contaminated. They've banned pesticides and many other things over there that we are staple, are common in the United States. The average school lunch program right now has 38 different pesticides in the school lunch.
Wow.
That's from one study done in the Washington, D.C. area.
Wow.
It's showing up in the urine of children. It's showing up in the cord blood of newborn babies. So you don't need a 10-year randomized controlled trial to be able to say, look at what we're doing. What have we done differently in the last 50 years that has ushered in all these chronic diseases? Kids didn't suddenly get lazy or disobedient to instructions. No, we've given them highly addictive foods, loaded it with refined carbohydrates, added chemicals. So I think we have to step back and ask what's going on. We need to talk about school lunch programs, not putting every overweight kid on Ozempic. We need to talk about treating diabetes with good food and cooking classes, not just throwing insulin at people. We need to talk about environmental exposures that cause diseases and cancer, not just chemotherapy. We've got to take a new approach. And these topics have lived in the blind spots, but we are seeing new momentum now in medicine because doctors are recognizing we have had a flawed education that has made us entirely unprepared to deal with the biggest health issues of our day.
Do you think doctors are waking up to this, or do you feel like majority of them are still stuck in the past?
I think they are waking up. There's a group of us now that are going directly to the public, talking about health. Peter Attia, Casey Means, we all have books out now that are selling very widely. They have a big podcast presence.
Yeah.
So we are starting to see, Peter Attia, who was with us at Johns Hopkins, a doctor I respect a lot, he was with us at Hopkins and was highly respected. He is an incredible, curious, scientific brain, and he is synthesizing many of these topics that we never talk about in medicine, and doctors are learning from it. Lots of doctors are now talking about what he is saying, what he's learning, the studies he's citing. And it's really just a compliment to our broken medical education. These are the issues. I don't think anyone in medical school talks about, certainly never heard a wink about any one of 20 major health topics you've covered on your podcast, topics that are serious. I mean, in medical school, I remember that they said the age of puberty is going down every year.
Why is that?
Well, I asked that question in medical school, and it was basically, we don't know. Just, here, you got to memorize these drugs in the next lesson.
Wow.
Put your head down, get back to work. But it's pretty obvious to me, what we never talked about in medical school is the fact that pesticides have hormone-like binding properties. Microplastics have hormone-like binding properties. The pesticide atrazine is known to be such a strong hormone disruptor. This is the number 2 herbicide in the United States.
Can you say the name of it again?
Atrazine.
Atrazine, okay.
Banned in Europe. It has hormone-like effects, hormone disrupting effects that will convert a male tadpole to a female frog.
Okay.
Where they will actually produce eggs, and it's unbelievable what's happening.
Yeah.
And so you look at all of the contaminants of the different hormones that are in our water supply, everyone taking oral contraceptive pills, where do those pills go? They go into our water system where you can detect estrogen levels. I'm not saying any one of those is the smoking gun, but you've got a bunch of things now that are known to have hormone disrupting effects that are new in our society that didn't exist before the rapid decline in puberty rates. And no one talks about it. It's pretty obvious. You're not going to get your 10-year randomized controlled trial. I mean, sperm counts are down 50% in the last 5 decades. Atrazine is known to lower sperm counts. Some of these food dyes are known to have hormone disrupting effect. No one talks about this stuff. We need to talk about it. These are major topics that should be front and center in healthcare. And what are we doing as doctors? We're just focusing on billing and coding and throughput, and we are not talking about these big topics.
Pursuit of Wellness is sponsored by BetterHelp. Therapy is something I have done pretty consistently since I was 14 years old, and it has really benefited me throughout my life, through the ups and downs. I think it's so important that we get our feelings out to someone else. I think when we hold things in, it can really start to affect us negatively. It's a safe space to get things off your chest and figure out how to work through whatever's weighing you down. I feel like it's really a space where I can share all my thoughts and feelings without worrying what the other person's thinking about me, and really just sort through my own thoughts and be guided in a good direction. It's helped me learn positive coping skills, setting boundaries, and empowering me to be my best self. Whether you've been through major trauma or just have day-to-day struggles, I think therapy can be such a benefit. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Get it off your chest with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/pow today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/pow. If you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen me and my dog Arnold sitting in front of my red light every single morning. I absolutely love red light therapy, and my favorite brand is Bon Charge. It's a holistic wellness brand with a huge range of evidence-based products to optimize your life in every way. My personal favorite is the red light face mask. I am someone who has had acne on and off for 10 years. My skin is finally clearing up, but I do have some scarring. And red light therapy can be amazing for acne and scarring, plus wrinkles and fine lines. eczema, wound healing, ingrown facial hair, razor burns, and so much more. It's such a calming part of my day. I like to wear the mask, maybe do a meditation, sit in silence for a little bit, and just gather myself before the day begins. All you really need is 10 to 20 minutes a day. You can use it while watching TV, cooking a meal. It's really easy to habit stack. It also helps boost collagen and elastin production, which is amazing for aging. The reason I like Bond Charge over the other competitor brands is it's removed the circadian and sleep disrupting blue and green light. Plus, it has zero EMF radiation, zero flicker, sleek and lightweight design, and a 1-year warranty. You guys have a special offer. Go to bondcharge.com and use coupon code PURSUIT, PURSUIT, to save 15%. That is BONCHARGE.com and use coupon code PURSUIT to save 15% off. As someone with very sensitive skin, I have to be so careful about the skincare I'm using, and that's why I choose ClearStem. It is the first skincare line that combines all three categories: anti-acne, anti-aging, and clean, which means free of hormone disruptors and pore clogging fillers. I get very frustrated with skincare because I feel a lot of them claim to be clean, but they still have pore cloggers and hormone disruptors. And I know that the founders of ClearStem, Danielle and Kaylee, are so thorough and careful with everything they put in these products. The girls have also had acne themselves, so they get how emotional and frustrating the process can be. I have a few favorite products from ClearStem: the Gentle Cleanser, the lip balm, the hair care, the body lotion. I just feel like I can absolutely trust what I'm putting on my face and in my hair and know that it's really helping my skin. I also love that they have their acne lab test on the website, which is helping thousands of people get to the root cause of their acne through comprehensive lab testing and lifestyle-based recommendations. That has been a huge part of my acne journey and getting to the root cause. Visit clearstemskincare.com and use code POW, POW, at checkout for 20% off your first purchase. Again, that's code POW, POW, for 20% off your first purchase at clearstemskincare.com. And is that because of the money that's going to be made from prescribing medications?
I don't think it's that intentional. I think it's more a culture in medicine, a culture of obedience, a culture of a small group of doctors at the top set the agenda for all the doctors nationwide. They write the exams. For example, in medical school, there's one small private company that writes the curriculum, basically sets the curricula for all the medical schools, writes the exams for the medical students. And so there's really little innovation. So they're just saying they need to learn what they learned when they were in medical school in the 1970s. And so this is a vicious cycle. You see it in other industries. You see it in the military. You see it in government. You see it in business. You see it in politics. Well, this is the way we've done it in the past, and this is the way we're going to do it now.
Yep.
And so that disconnect, I think, is one of the reasons why we've got this guild of doctors that they come in intellectually curious, and we beat that curiosity out of them. They memorize and regurgitate. They bill and code. They are obedient. They are rewarded for those things. But enough of them are now saying, hey, we can't keep doing this. We are not talking about the root causes of all of these chronic diseases, all these cancers going up in young people. We can't just keep talking about doing surgery for cancer. We want to talk about the cause of cancer. Alzheimer's, I think you see this, one of the most explicit denials of obvious common sense, basic medical research. You've got to focus on the billion-dollar Alzheimer's drugs that are making a lot of people rich on Wall Street, and almost a complete ignoring of research that the Mediterranean diet reduces the risk of Alzheimer's. Probably any healthy diet, maybe not the diet itself, but maybe more what you're avoiding from the bad diets.
Yep.
Hormone replacement therapy with estrogen for perimenopausal women reduces the risk of Alzheimer's by 35% in good studies. The role of quality sleep in reducing Alzheimer's risk, food as medicine. So no one talks about the cause of Alzheimer's, only the billion-dollar drugs to treat it. And I think as a result, we're watching Alzheimer's go up at massive rates, and mostly among women. 2/3 are among women because there's some hormonal connection, it's believed. And no one talks about the root causes, just these billion-dollar drugs that barely work. Let's be honest, they barely work, but they make a lot of people rich. And it's this myopia that I think we're seeing now pushback on to say, what are you doing at the NIH, at the National Institutes of Health? You're supposed to be advancing health. That's what the H stands for, not just drugs. But we have this medication-dominated culture. And when in these short visits, I've been in that situation as a doctor, people are coming demanding a medication, and it's easy just to prescribe, but it's harder to talk about these root causes.
Yeah.
But if you take a step back, we have the most medicated population in the history of the world. We're not on a good path. We're going down a very bad path. 20% of our nation's children are on prescription medications, 40% of adults, nearly half of children, 40% in total, will have a mental health diagnosis as kids. Just like the Alzheimer's example, here's another one. We take a kid and mess up their circadian physiology by waking them up very early.
Yep.
Not because it's good for their health, but because it's convenient for adults. We drop them off at school. We feed them an ultra-processed load of food in the morning, including all these chemicals and food dyes. Then we tell them to sit sedentary at a desk. And then we hit them again with refined carbohydrates and added sugar at a very high dose. They go into this kind of sugar food coma after lunch, have trouble paying attention and sitting still. And what do? We medicate them in response, right? You have attention deficit disorder or whatever. My favorite is oppositional defiant disorder.
I haven't heard of that one. That's a new one.
It's probably the most bogus of all the medical diagnoses in medicine. What's that mean? Child disagrees?
Yeah.
The child says, hey, I don't want to sit sedentary for 7 hours. Well, you have oppositional defiant disorder. Shut up and take this medication. I mean, you think about what we're doing, it's insane. It's insane. So we're seeing a revolution now of doctors who are taking a fresh new approach, educating themselves about the root causes of diseases. It's all the same stuff. It's food, toxins, insulin resistance, general body inflammation. A lot of stuff boils down to that. You look at all these chronic diseases, autoimmune diseases among women, skyrocketing right now affects 1 in 5 adult women. Why? They're the same root causes. We're changing metabolism. It's affecting mitochondrial health. It's permeating the entire body. When you take food chemicals in your mouth and they go down the GI tract, the immune system in your body that is adjacent to the GI tract, it's embedded. We have a strong immune system in the GI tract because that's the front lines of new things we eat. It reacts with an inflammatory response, but it's not an acute inflammatory storm. It's a low-grade, constant inflammation that's always there. And it just makes you feel sick. It makes you feel sad. And so this is going on all the time. We know seed oils are pro-inflammatory. We know ultra-processed foods change the gut health and the microbiome, increasing inflammation sometimes. So there's a movement now in medicine to say, we're not going to just study what the NIH tells us to study. We're not going to study what Big Pharma tells us to study. We're going to study what we believe is important to health. Big topics we're not talking about that we need to talk about.
The holidays are coming up, and I know we all have a ton of events to go to, lots happening. And this year, I'm so thankful for Honeylove because there is nothing worse than suffering from an uncomfortable bra or shapewear. Honeylove has revolutionized the bra and shapewear game. Say goodbye to uncomfortable underwire and bulky fabrics that trap heat. Honeylove's bras feature supportive bonding that eliminates the need for an underwire without sacrificing lift. Plus, they're made with fabric that's so soft you won't want to take it off. And their shapewear uses targeted compression technology so you no longer have to feel like you're suffocating while wearing effective shapewear. You'll immediately feel and see the difference. I am someone who cannot be wearing an uncomfortable bra. I'm pretty much used to wearing sports bras at this point, and I absolutely love Honey Love's bras. They're so comfortable, it feels like you're not even wearing anything. Treat yourself to the best bras and shapewear on the market and save up to 50% off site-wide at honeylove.com/pow this month only. Inventory is limited and the sale ends soon, so don't miss their best deals of the year. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them where we sent you. Elevate your comfort, elevate your style, thanks to Honey Love. I recently had Mike Feldstein on the show, and he is the founder of Jasper, which is the world's best air purifier. That episode was so mind-blowing. The air quality we're breathing is so important for overall health. He was so knowledgeable. I highly recommend you guys go back and listen to that episode. Jasper is a commercial-grade air purifier. It's also beautiful and quiet. I have a couple in my house, and they are so beautiful you don't even notice them. But what I love about my Jasper is the second that there's any toxin in the air, whether I blow out a candle or shake out the bed sheets, the Jasper turns on and helps purify the air. It just makes me feel like my air is taken care of and I'm getting the best quality possible. Hundreds, if not thousands of listeners who recently heard the podcast with Mike have already bought Jaspers and are loving them. Plus, I have a special deal for you guys. You can get $400 off early Black Friday access to my community. Jaspers will be sold out by Black Friday, so I highly recommend you guys hop on this. Investing in clean air is one of the most important ways to invest in your health. Better sleep, more energy, and clean, fresh air. Jasper is the world's best air purifier, commercial grade and beautiful. I have been putting them throughout my home and we're bringing them to the office as well. Jasper is offering an exclusive deal. Get $400 off with code POW at checkout. Again, that's code POW at jasper.co for $400 off your Jasper air purifier. To go back to kids, I want to kind of start at the beginning. I've heard you speak about the implications of C-sections on Peter Attia's show. And I think this is really interesting because it's something that I've heard from a couple of my guests and kind of thought about. Why could C-sections be impacting our health later in life? Like if we were born through C-section. I wasn't, and I feel like I'm a pretty healthy person, but I've met people who were born through C-section and have a ton of allergies, and I've always wondered if it was connected. What's your view on that?
Well, there have been studies now associating a C-section birth with all kinds of future health issues, including asthma. So what's happening there is the microbiome is being altered. Your microbiome is different with a C-section. The microbiome, of course, your viewers, I'm sure, know this. Millions of different bacteria that line the inside of the GI tract that are involved in digestion, producing vitamins. They produce serotonin involved in mood. Most of your body's serotonin is made in the gut. They train the immune system. They trigger the immune system. They deconjugate estrogen. It's an incredible organ system. These millions of different bacteria that line the GI tract. We call it gut health or the microbiome. It's different when you're born by C-section because when you're in utero, when a baby is in utero, their gut is sterile. So where do those millions of different bacteria come from? I'm not talking about millions cumulative of the same bacteria, millions of different bacteria. Where do they come from? Well, it begins when a baby passes through the vaginal canal. Their gut is seeded with microbes, with bacteria. It's then augmented with bacteria in the environment from breastfeeding, from skin, from kisses from grandparents. It's been going on for millions of years. And that is how the microbiome will become formed in the first few years of life based on the foods kids take in. And the different bacteria live in a balance. They live in a harmony. Now you take an antibiotic and you rip it down there. It's carpet bombing some of those bacteria and it's altering the microbiome. In a C-section, a baby does not have the same route of formation of the microbiome. A baby is often extracted from a sterile operative field, and the baby is sterile. The gut is often still sterile. It depends on how long the mom's been pushing, but the gut is often sterile. So here you have a baby extracted from a sterile operative field. What may seed their gut microbiome are not the bacteria from the birth canal. It may be the bacteria that normally live in the hospital,
Mm,
especially when the baby's whisked off to some other room. Babies should be held by their mother the vast majority of their time. They're more likely to latch, breastfeed, which also results in a different, better, healthier microbiome from breastfeeding. It's politically incorrect to say so. It's scientific truth. Um, so all of these things, for all of these reasons, a baby born by C-section is different. Higher rates of asthma in some studies. A study in JAMA Surgery, JAMA is our top medical journal, by the way. JAMA, the surgery branch journal, just came out with a study that babies born by C-section were more likely to have colon cancer early in life. The increase in colon cancer we're seeing in people under age 50,
wow.
people in their 30s, we're hearing about now, we're
Yeah.
seeing in the hospital. Uh, an association with being born by C-section. Now, I don't think that's the biggest association out there. I don't want to scare people. C-sections save lives.
Yeah.
Right? If the doctor feels that it's important, do whatever the doctor says in any emergency, in
Yeah.
any setting, not just the delivery. But 40% of C-sections are unnecessary, according to experts in the field. 80% of antibiotics are unnecessary, in my opinion, 60% in most studies. I've been forced to give antibiotics because the hospital protocol requires it many times. And I've tried to fight it. Like, I don't want my patient to get antibiotics, but it's the protocol. So all of these things are changing gut health. At the same time, as chronic diseases are going up. Now, you can't assume that's a causal relationship unless you do a proper study. But at the Mayo Clinic, they did a really interesting study where they looked at kids who got an antibiotic in the first couple years of life versus kids who did not.
Yeah.
Amazing study. The kids who got an antibiotic in the first few years of life had a higher rate of obesity, 20% higher increased risk.
Wow.
Farmers have been noticing that for decades. You give antibiotics to animals, they're fatter.
Mm.
It increases their yield, and that's why they do it. It's terrible. They shouldn't be giving it routinely. But it's the world expert on the microbiome who I interviewed for the book Blindspots. He said, if this is what we're noticing in animals, and routine antibiotic just makes them more obese, what's it doing to children? What's it doing to adults? What about these situations where an adult will eat the right foods, exercise, and they can't lose weight? Maybe their microbiome has been altered. We tend to blame people for their conditions in medicine, but maybe this is something that was done to their microbiome early in life.
Mm.
And so, in this incredible study by the Mayo Clinic, they found that antibiotics didn't just result in an increase in obesity, likely related to an altered microbiome with the antibiotic, but also a higher rate of asthma, 90% higher risk of asthma, nearly a 300% higher risk of celiac. And these are all new things, right? They didn't exist a generation ago. This is all in the modern post-World War II era where antibiotics have been used at mass.
Mm.
A 32% higher rate of attention deficit disorder. Remember that connection between the serotonin and the brain?
Yeah.
It affects mood. The microbiome affects mood. The more antidepressants we prescribe, the more depressed people are. The more ADHD meds we prescribe, the more ADHD there is. The more obesity meds we prescribe, the more obesity, the more diabetes meds. What are we doing? We've got to stop and talk about the root causes.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not saying these meds are causing these diseases. I'm saying we're not addressing the root causes. And this study at Mayo Clinic was pretty compelling because the more courses of antibiotic a child took, the greater the risk of each of those chronic diseases, what we call a dose-dependent relationship. That suggests a cause and effect relationship.
Let's say a woman has a C-section.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that they can do to help their baby's microbiome in the moment?
Yes, in the moment, a couple things. One, now I don't know for certain if this helps, but at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York, they're actually taking vaginal fluid swabs and wiping it on the skin of the babies.
Okay, that's what I've heard near the eyes, right?
Yeah, so they put it somewhere near the area where it's believed to grow in and form the microbiome. There's no need to wash a baby in the first few hours or the first day. Some of the best practices now in childbirth that I go through in the book Blind Spots, these medical centers will now wait a couple days because that sort of protein coat around the baby from birth is healthy. It's got the bacteria that help ingrow and form the microbiome. It's a bit of a thermal coat. And why are we washing babies? Just to give mom a shiny baby? Like so the vaginal swab, that's a theory. It's unproven, but that's the rationale to it.
Mm-hmm.
The study should be done soon. Um, Skin to skin time. So one enormous positive thing for a newborn baby is for a mom to hold that baby immediately upon birth for hours, skin to skin. It's an incredible, magical incubator. The babies have less stress when the moms are holding the baby. How do we know that? It's been noticed that their glucose level is more normal. And the reason is that their stress hormones are not spiking as high. So we know that their baby's less stressed. The baby's more likely to latch and breast feed, which can be difficult when the baby's been separated. And avoid unnecessary antibiotics. Some premature babies are given antibiotics for no reason, and that's an old practice that we're trying to call out.
Mm.
So there's a lot of things in the short term, and then what the baby eats, of course, is of critical importance. You would not believe the amount of seed oils in infant formula. I mean, most infant formula. And by the way, these are the companies who have given millions of dollars to the American Academy of Pediatrics. They are the primary sponsors of some of these Pediatrics Association conferences. So people need to, look for foods for the baby that have healthy, natural ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
Seed oils, of course, sound natural, but they're not. Vegetable oil, canola, soybean, corn oil. They are heated at high temperatures and denatured and then changed chemically with a solvent. So you're basically consuming chemicals.
Mm.
that are.
Isn't there a shortage right now of the healthy formulas? Kendamil?
I've heard that.
All my mum friends are like freaking out because there's a big shortage since I don't know the name of I think you were there speaking to Congress, correct?
The Senate Roundtable on Nutrition.
Yes, and someone brought up baby formula, and ever since that, the Kendamil has been sold out. Isn't that crazy?
Well, I'm glad that this is what is supposed to be happening. We're, educating the public will drive consumer behavior.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. Back to food dyes. This is a big topic of conversation right now. I think I saw a video of you with the cereal. Why are we putting food dyes in kids' food? What impact is it having? I felt like it was in discussion to have it be illegal, but that never happened. Like what's going on there?
Many of these food dyes are illegal in other countries, Canada, parts of Europe, because they sound cutesy, food dyes, but they're really chemicals. For example, yellow dye number 5 is a chemical called tartrazine.
Mm.
It's a chemical. It's synthetic. It's made in a laboratory. It was made from coal tar, which is a byproduct of the coal industry. And they found it had this bright, vibrant yellow color. And so they added it to fabrics. And you had these bright yellow colors in fabrics. And then they just thought, you know what? Let's just put it in food.
Is that what M&Ms are?
I'm sure they have yellow number. I'm sure they've got yellow 5, yellow 6, red 40, blue 1, BHC.
Yikes.
I mean, all of these things are banned in many parts of Europe and in Canada. So Kellogg's will make 2 versions of their Fruit Loops. One with these food dyes, which are these chemicals, just to make it look pretty and bright to the kids.
Mm.
And another version of Fruit Loops without the food dyes and chemicals for Canada, for Canadian kids. An American company making the same cereal 2 different ways. And so a bunch of us, led by Vani Hari and Mr. Karp and Callie Means, went to the Kellogg's headquarters recently and said, hey, American children deserve the healthier version of a cereal made by an American company.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they getting the less healthier version of the version that's some of these? So tartrazine has been associated not just with hormone disruption, yellow number five, but with attention deficit disorder, with changes to a gene. So, what are we doing? I mean, you look at many of these chronic diseases are increasing. They're not increasing in Europe at nearly the same rate. You don't see this mass obesity epidemic in many parts of the world. It's increasing as they're adopting some Western foods. But in Japan, the obesity rate in children is like 3 to 5%. In the US, it's like half of our nation's children are obese, overweight, or pre diabetic. So that's why there's a special interest now to say, here's something we can fix. It requires educating parents, purchasing healthier cereals, saying no to Kellogg. Kellogg was the company that tried to suggest, hey, why don't you have cereal for dinner? Because the economy was doing rough. And here's an idea, cereal for dinner. And they, put that out there. I mean, this is unhealthy food that is behind so much of our chronic disease epidemic.
Yeah.
We never talk about it in medicine. We have to talk about it.
How do we get the word out to vulnerable populations? Like, I mean, I've traveled to certain areas of Arkansas for work, and I've been in the middle of the country, and I feel like the information that maybe I have or people in New York or LA have just isn't as readily available there. And they're also buying their kids, food from the grocery store. How do we get the information to them?
Yeah, we need to get the word out. Some of these school lunch programs need subsidies because the healthier foods might be a little more expensive. To date, we've heard this resistance like, oh, we can't afford this. Well, try the price of insulin or metformin or any one of these drugs long term or an ICU stay in the hospital. So, we have the highest rates of inflammatory bowel disease. What's going on? Well, we're putting chemicals down our system and the body is getting inflamed. So we've got to connect the dots. It's so obvious. Got to get the word out. We have to educate the public. We have to change a lot of these programs to enable them to buy healthier foods. We need to prioritize where our food health priorities should be because you can get fixated on any one chemical or ingredient, but as Dr. Casey Means has said, it's the cumulative burden of all of these things going down our GI tract that is causing this inflammation and our bodies are reacting.
I always think about, I know you said you were born in the UK.
Yeah,
so
Liverpool.
Liverpool. I moved to America when I was 10 years old. And it was an interesting age to move because growing up, I mean, my family isn't particularly health oriented, but we ate pretty much whole foods, like cooked at home every night. I had definitely a lot of bread, but it was like baguette and butter and ham and cheese and that kind of thing. And then I remember moving to the US and going to a normal school, 5th grade, and seeing Wonder Bread for the first time, pizza for lunch every day, Gatorade. It was my first time seeing Gatorade, like a lot of color. And I felt like the food didn't look real. Like it felt like cartoon food.
Yes.
And it was just like the first thing I noticed. And also the amount of allergies the kids had in my school, like the peanut allergy, which I've heard you talk about. That wasn't really a thing when I was growing up in the UK. So I don't know where the UK is at now in terms of obesity numbers. And I don't know how strict the rules are there now. But when I was growing up, it felt quite different.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have to ask ourselves, why did we not see this rash of allergies, polycystic ovarian disease, inflammatory bowel disease, autism, autoimmune diseases, early onset Alzheimer's? That's gone up by like threefold in the last 10 years. Why did we not see them a generation ago? And why are we not seeing them in many parts of Africa where, say, they're not using ultra-processed foods? The Wonder Bread you're talking about, and by the way, I was too young to really notice a difference when I came to the United States. What we do to bread is a crime. We strip it of its fiber, something that's critical for digestion, because fiber slows down the absorption so the body can extract the carbohydrates and the fats appropriately. We strip it of its fiber, chop it up mechanically, bleach it, and then call it bread when it's really just sugar at that point. It's acting like sugar. It's refined flour and it's acting like sugar on the body. So what's happening is the pancreas, which produces insulin, gets the sugar load. It can taste it. It can taste the sweetness. It can even start producing it thinking about the sugar that's about to hit. It's called the prodromal response. Can even salivate thinking about food. And then it gets all these refined carbohydrates down its system. And so the insulin levels spike. Now, normally in a natural world, insulin levels are increasing gradually with meals where we chew the food slowly. We're eating healthy foods that are bound to fiber, and we have low levels of insulin that are sort of rolling as we eat, not snacking all the time like kids now at school. They have to have a snack. Every class. It's like, where'd this come from?
Yeah.
So insulin levels are spiking. The human body has never seen insulin levels spike this high, this frequently before in human history. I mean, unless people got into the sugar cane and started just eat that incessantly. But even sugar cane is from a plant. It's got some fiber bound. It's the refined sugar. Watch out for the high fructose corn syrup where they just pack the sugar. It's not different sugar. It's just packed in. It's creating this super ultra sweet sensation that's stimulating dopamine. And so what we do is we create food addictions among children. And then we blame them for being disobedient. Well, we've given them these addictions. This is something adults have done to children. And so bread is a big piece of it. Of course, pizza, you mentioned. Pizza is using the processed bread.
Yeah.
So we found a great store near our house where they have products imported from Europe.
Ugh, I've looked for that.
Yeah.
I found a website. What's the name of the store?
Well, it's called the Italian Store. It's not here in Austin, but it's a great source of pasta. And so, I know people who will say that is the only pasta I can eat and not feel blah afterwards.
Yeah.
It says a lot.
Yeah, I like sourdough bread. I actually make my own now.
Yeah.
How do you feel about sourdough?
Yeah, sure.
You're good about that?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I love sourdough bread. I also feel like when you're talking about this, I'm thinking about on social media just how social media will show you what you're interested in. So for me, when I go on Instagram or TikTok, I'm kind of on this sector of social media where people are making their own sourdough bread. They're feeding their babies like anchovies and liver but that's like what I'm interested in. That's what appeals to me. But I also wonder what someone's social media looks like if they don't have those interests. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just thinking about how that might impact someone's, buying habits for their kids.
Yeah.
What do you think? What should a kid's diet look like?
Look, I think the basic principles of whole foods that are natural, that are grown from good regenerative soils, and clean meats. I think we've demonized natural fat way too much in the United States.
Yeah.
It was mostly driven by the industry and some ignorance by a couple political doctors in the 1960s and 70s, and propagated by the United States government, which has been, in my opinion, one of the greatest propagators of misinformation when it comes to health, food pyramid being at the top of the list. Avoid chemicals, and you can't do it 100%, but avoid ultra processed foods. Look at the ingredients. You're going to see a lot of seed oils. Cook with avocado oil or coconut oil or extra virgin olive oil. Choose organic, especially when you're talking about the surface of a fruit or vegetable.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of pesticides in the environment. They're doing a lot of damage, in my opinion. Don't rely on the EPA to tell you what's a healthy and not healthy level. I believe in good filtered water because there's a lot of heavy metals and other contaminants in water. There's also, atrazine in water, that herbicide we talked about. So these are all things people can do to try to get back to a restorative gut microbiome and healthy foods.
For anyone listening who's maybe wanting to take this step into living a healthier lifestyle, they're thinking about these things, but they're maybe overwhelmed. They don't know how to ask their doctors questions. They're intimidated. What do you recommend?
So a lot of good resources out there, good podcasts. There's Max Lugavere, Real Foodology. You probably know some of these folks and have maybe had them on. Peter Attia, I'm a big fan of. Casey's Kitchen, Mark Hyman, the book Good Energy. I'm a big fan of Casey and Callie Means and what they're doing right now.
He was on the show and it did really well. People were very excited about it.
I mean, this guy's a modern day prophet, really talking about the importance of looking at our blind spot and addressing the big topic that no one is talking about that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
And that is, we have a poisoned food supply and no one is talking about the connection between food and health, only medications and health and operations and health. And so that's a very good message. I've enjoyed listening to Casey and Callie Means on a lot of podcasts, including I saw some of that one where Callie came on your show.
Yeah.
So you're doing good work. I mean, we need to get the word out. In the past, it was just 3 corporate media stations, and you had a medical establishment that would guard what was in their medical journals. And the medical schools had a uniform curriculum that was, locking arms and walking off a cliff together when it came to food and nutrition and corrupted health science. And then now you have information that is being shared openly through books and podcasts. Yeah. And now somebody can actually become an expert on many areas of food that doctors are not even educated on simply by reading and listening to some of these podcasts. So, of course, there's a range of quality of content out there, but there are some really good sources and some good respected physicians that are coming on shows like yours.
Absolutely. Final question is the one I ask every single guest. What does wellness mean to you?
I think you want to feel great. I think when you exercise, we could talk about the physiologic benefits, but the reality is when you exercise, you feel good and you feel good immediately. Yeah. When you walk out of the gym, when you're having a meal an hour or 2 later, you feel better. Mentally, you feel better. I think we don't talk about community enough. Purpose, connection, complimenting someone in a very intentional way affects your own brain chemistry.
Yeah.
Seeing someone and saying, I noticed you brought us that x-ray to the clinic. You pulled it up. Thank you for doing that. If I say that to one of my students, I really appreciate what you're doing here, and it's good to have you with us. Not only is it kind and humane, and it's going to help their culture of intimidation that they're dealing with at work, but it's going to have an impact on me greater than an antidepressant.
Yeah.
And so you want to feel good. And a lot of times health is about feeling good. And when you feel good in the short term, over time, you will feel good and live longer long term.
I agree with you 100%. Thank you so much, Dr. Marty. This was fantastic. Where can they find your book? Where can they find you online?
Oh, thank you, Mari. The book, Blindspots, is available wherever books are sold. I think they sold out in America on opening day, but it's now restocked. And I'm on social media on all the platforms.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mari.
Thanks for joining us on the Pursuit of Wellness podcast. To support this show, please rate and review and share with your loved ones. If you want to be reminded of new episodes, click the subscribe button on your preferred podcast or video player. You can sign up for my newsletter to receive my favorites at marilewellen.com. It will be linked in the show notes. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson, Fiona Attucks, and Kelly Kyle. This show is edited by Mike Fry, and our video is recorded by Luis Vargas. You can also watch the full video of each episode on our YouTube channel at Mari Fitness. Love you, Power Girls and Power Boys. See you next time. The content of this show is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for individual medical and mental health advice and does not constitute a provider-patient relationship. As always, talk to your doctor or health team.